I was just told to confirm or else it would be canceled.
Yeah. 10:30 on day.
Okay, sorry, 10.
And this is a 3 days process.
Remind me again how much it is?
If you're gonna go the whole procedure, it will be $2,137, and we only accept cash because we don't have any card machine in our clinic.
For the very first time, we have an undercover investigation into Canada's late-term abortion industry. Pro-life activist Alissa Golob with the political group RightNow went undercover into 4 late-term abortion clinics and videoed the interactions she had with the abortionists. And the opening video, which is from Cabbagetown Clinic in Toronto, notes, "In Canada, we're told late-term abortions almost never happen, and if they do, it's only for serious medical conditions. RightNow went undercover to see if this was true." The Canadian government's website states, "Late-term abortions are rare and usually occur because of serious medical issues." And so Alissa Golob was 22 weeks, that's 5 months pregnant, when she went into the Cabbagetown Women's Clinic in Toronto. No reason was given for wanting a late-term abortion, they emphasized, and no reason was asked. Here's what that looked like.
Our limit is 24. Canada doesn't have a limit, okay? Our limit is 24. But there's a hospital that sometimes people come here, they're not so sure, they need more time, or their house got limits, and they end up deciding, yes, I do want it, but we can't do it anymore. I send them to Women's College Hospital. It's a hospital that's close by. It's 10 minutes from here. They don't have a limit. They sometimes go up to 32, I believe.
Okay.
It's very different than what we do when you're out for 25 weeks. It's like a mini stillbirth. They give you an epidural when you're 8 days out. But up to 25 weeks, they can put you under. This is something that's hard to go through. It's multiple days.
There's a lot in just that very short clip from this undercover video, and we're going to be dropping the links to the full videos that you can watch for yourself in the description here, because the abortionist is essentially admitting that there's no limit in Canada, contrary to what you hear over and over and over again, that the medical profession is self-regulating. It is true that different doctors and different medical professionals will perform abortions at different stages. They all have their own personal limit as to how late they're willing to abort a baby. Even Henry Morgentaler didn't want to abort babies past around 20 weeks. But the reality is that if you want to get an abortion, no matter how late in pregnancy you are, regardless of whether the child is viable outside the womb, you can get an abortion, whether at Cabbagetown Clinic, or they send you to the college, or if you can't get an abortion there, if you're too late even for them, they'll send you to the United States, where you can get an abortion by a late-term abortionist. She says later in the video, up to 25 weeks, they can put you under. Tomorrow, there's a needle that goes into the lower belly area. It's a medication called digoxin, which will stop the fetal heart at some point. As far as science knows, there's no consciousness like we have at this point, but if there were, it's to prevent it. Doctor's preference as well. This is a very interesting line, because obviously, the baby is at this point conscious. At 22 weeks in the womb, the baby begins to be familiar with voices, her brain is rapidly developing, and she can feel touch. She can also feel intense pain. But there's a key reason that she says doctors prefer to give a lethal injection to the child in the womb first. It is because they want to reduce or eliminate the possibility of live birth. Live birth is considered in the abortion industry a potential side effect of an attempted late-term abortion. And despite all efforts to the contrary, this still occurs shockingly often. In Quebec, for example, a study showed that induced second trimester abortions result in a live birth 11.2% of the time, with 1 in 10 of those cases resulting in live-born fetuses that survive more than 3 hours. In other words, they're trying to abort the baby is born alive, and they live for more than 3 hours outside the womb in 1 out of 10 cases. But more than 10% of attempted late-term abortions, according to a secular medical study, are born alive. This should be breaking news everywhere, but it's not. And it's impossible to emphasize how deceptive these abortion counselors, these abortionists are. The idea that there's no consciousness like we have at this point. What is that even supposed to mean? And completely avoiding bringing up the reality of what the baby is like at this stage. The earliest child to survive outside the womb is a baby born in Iowa last year, and he survived at 21 weeks. The stage that Alissa was at when she went to the Cabbagetown Clinic. So I want to show you another clip here that highlights the reality of where we are in Canada.
So it's depending on who's answering it. The law in Canada and the US overall doesn't have it too far, okay? I can tell you that once things reach 35, 36 weeks, it might be impossible to find someone that would do it, okay? 24 up to 30 weeks, it's very possible. The system certainly doesn't think it's too far, okay? Certainly before 24 weeks, when a fetus isn't viable, it's very unlikely for a fetus to survive. And if there is something like that, it would be at 22 weeks, the absolute earliest. And usually it's not a perfect thing. So there's sequelae, there's issues that that has because of how early the birth was. So in that situation, there's very few clinicians that would consider that life, okay? At this stage, I would say that what is inside is something that depends on you for existence, and that's not something that is the lie. Okay? Part of that is the feticide, the injection to stop the fetal heart. Part of that is because it also tends to be a shorter duration of a procedure, and anything that's shorter is associated with less blood loss, so it's a little bit of a safer thing. And it also ensures that if there is any kind of perception whatsoever, it's not there when we're doing the procedure. When somebody is desperate for the abortion, then all of that is sort of secondary, and they can get through the sometimes horrible things that can happen. Expulsion is one of those things. It's rarely dangerous, but it is horrible in terms of the experience. We try to avoid it, of course, as much as we can. And then if you decide that what you want is a hospital referral, do we have the Women's College consent?
Yes,
I was going to ask in case.
That's what I was gonna ask. Like, can I just
Because they let us know and we refer.
Okay. And do they have, like, sometimes you hear like, oh, your health has to be in danger. The fetus at
That's
do anything.
classic abortion care. That kind of abortion care hasn't been in Canada since the 1960s.
So they don't ask you anything. You don't have to prove like, oh, I'm at risk or anything like that.
Absolutely not. They have the ability to take the fetus out and to complete the abortion well beyond 24 weeks.
Right.
They just do it a little bit differently in that case. You don't have to speak to a counselor if nobody will ever force you to do that.
Yeah.
Because abortions carry into our future as well as our past. They're very, they have many connections. So you want, if that you're ever sort of coming back to this point, you want to be able to say to yourself, this is what I had to do.
Yeah, right.
And understand that a lot of women do this because they already have 2 kids and they can't take care of another one. And studies have shown that their actual children thrive better if they feel that way, that they can't handle to have there's also a lot of benefits to society in general. So families tend to be able to have.
Again, there's so much there. Notice that the language she is using deliberately covers the main character in this moral drama, which is the baby, which is at the center of the entire discussion. So when she refers to expulsion, she means giving birth to the dead baby that's been killed by the feticide. And the reason this experience is so horrible is because often the mother will see the baby, and the baby looks very much like a baby. In fact, again, at this stage, babies have survived outside the womb. And yet she claims that very few clinicians would consider this life. This is objectively untrue. Every single Canadian medical textbook used in every single Canadian medical school emphasizes that life begins at fertilization. But even beyond that, we're now talking at a stage where nobody disagrees that we're talking about a baby, where nobody actually disagrees that we're talking about a fully formed human life that even looks entirely like a baby. We've moved past the area where people are fighting about what it is and into the area where everybody recognizes it, because you can go ahead and look online and see videos of babies of the age that she is referring to in incubators who actually survive. And yet she's doing everything she can to avoid giving any accurate information about the baby at that stage, even when she says we want to avoid perception. In other words, they want to make sure that they kill the baby before the baby exits the womb and begins to experience the world outside the womb. Every term here is deliberately chosen to cover up what is actually taking place. And then notice she emphasizes if you're healthy and the baby's healthy, doesn't matter. If you don't want the baby, then it's in your best interest and the best interest of society and the best interest of any siblings that child might have for you to abort that baby, for you to have that baby killed at our clinic or maybe down at the college. She's really emphatic about this point and even refers to her born children as her real children, as if the child in the womb isn't in fact a real child, even though Alissa has said to her that this baby in her womb is a healthy baby and could potentially, even at this stage, again, survive outside the womb. So there's so much there. Again, it also just debunks what the Abortion Rights Coalition of Canada says, what pro-abortion politicians say, what the press says, this idea that you can get an abortion or that you only primarily get an abortion if there's a health issue. That's classic abortion care. That has not been the case in Canada since the 1960s. And when these videos were posted to X, I noticed you had some physicians responding saying this doesn't really happen, and Alissa responding, watch the video. It's a Canadian abortionist's word against yours. And so the cover-up is not going to be very effective anymore when abortionists are now on record, exposed in video, online for the entire public to view. And when we see these same lies get trotted out by the abortion industry, their backers in the press, and their supporters in politics, we can point to this investigation and say that is not the case. That is not what workers in the abortion industry will tell you behind closed doors. So the second video was shot in Montreal. That one was also released. That one was released earlier this week. Now, co-founder Alissa Golob, co-founder of RightNow, recorded those conversations when she was 5 months pregnant. She was 21 weeks when she went to the CLSC St. Catherine Health Center. The abortion staffer asked her how sure she was of her decision to have the late-term abortion, and Golob told her she was about a 5 out of 10, and then again affirmed that she had no health problems that was making this abortion necessary. And the staffer was very businesslike. It's this afternoon for the laminaria replacement, she says, totally unfazed by the fact that we're talking about a healthy, viable baby. She said that if Golob isn't sure, she can even delay the appointments because she still has time, although in this instance the baby wouldn't. When Golob asks how much time she has if she wants to procure an abortion at CLSC St. Catherine, the staffer replies, it's dependent on the doctor. That's why I got to check the doctor for next week. For next week, it's good. You have max 2 weeks. That's putting her at 24 weeks. Otherwise, you can have an abortion, but it's another step. And let's roll a clip here from this Montreal expose video.
Otherwise, you can have an abortion, but it's another step. You need to go to the hospital to have an induction. Induction is it's like a delivery, but with the dead fetus.
Like I have to go through labor and stuff, or
Yeah.
and then how would it die?
We did an injection here
Oh, okay.
before,
Okay.
and the next day, you coming back here to see if the fetus is dead.
Okay.
And after that, you go to the hospital to have the delivery. If you do it today, this week or next week, you don't see anything. It's like
Right.
an abortion. It's like regular abortion, but we have to dilate your cervix just before, but it's
Right.
the only step more.
Right.
You need to go to the hospital to have an induction. Induction is like a delivery, but with the dead fetus.
So in that video as well, what they're talking about is injecting the baby in order to kill the baby. And then they have to check to make sure the injection worked, that the baby was actually killed by that injection. And then she says, again, the language, you won't see anything. What is anything? She's talking about the baby's body. She's talking about the mother coming face to face with her baby. You saw at the end of the clip there what a baby looks like at 21 weeks. So this is the kind of thing that should create an enormous amount of common ground in Canada's abortion debate. But the reality is that almost 80% of Canadians don't know that abortion is legal until birth in this country. And the Abortion Rights Coalition of Canada and other organizations constantly try to cover up this fact because they know that the more Canadians find out about this, the more horrified they are, which is why, as we mentioned in a previous video, when ARPA Canada put up a billboard that simply read, "Canada has no abortion laws," and nothing else, the Abortion Rights Coalition of Canada sued to have that billboard taken down. Why? Because if people would read that billboard and think for a moment about what that meant, they would start to come to the kinds of conclusions that Alissa Golob and RightNow have revealed in these undercover videos. They would start to realize in Canada, in hospitals, in abortion clinics, they're killing healthy, viable babies in the late term. That's not even to talk about the weird bringing a purse full of cash through a shady area of Toronto to a clinic, or the fact that these abortion clinic workers are deceiving people with their language that's deliberately designed to avoid discussing what we're talking about, even just constantly using the word fetus, which is Latin for young one, so you're calling it a baby in a different language, to ensure that at no point does the mother stop and seriously consider what she's doing, even though she says most clinicians would not consider this to be life. Why? Because the baby in the womb is totally dependent on you. Well, in a sane society, we recognize that the more somebody is dependent on others, the greater our responsibility is to them. But in abortion world, everything is reversed. In the world of people who support abortion, your dependence makes you less worthy of protection. Even though people recognize that if you have dependents, you are more responsible for them in the eyes of the law, unless that child is still in the womb, in which case, in Canada, you have no responsibility towards them until they've exited the womb in a living form. Or perhaps if you're born in the wrong place, if you're born in an abortion clinic after they've tried to kill you, which in Quebec, this happens 11.2% of the time with second trimester abortions, the babies will be left to die. And this happens hundreds of times across Canada as well. Canada has no abortion laws. What does this mean? It means precisely what RightNow has exposed in the first several videos of their expose. And every single Canadian should be thinking about what that means for babies in the womb, what that means for us as a country, and what that should mean for the press who covers it up and for the politicians who insist it's not happening, because if they did admit it was happening, they would defend that as well. So go to RightNow's website. We'll drop the link. Sign their petition, get involved, and share these videos wherever you can. Thank you for taking the time to watch or listen to this episode of The Bridgehead. We hope that this was helpful content, putting some of these really important news stories into context for you. If you found this helpful, please do like the video, subscribe to the podcast. You can find us wherever you get your content. Thanks again.